Have you ever wondered what it feels like when the sun blinks? Not just clouds drifting by, but the great light of our world fading, as if the day itself is holding its breath. Tonight, we will walk into that shadow to see, hear, and feel what truly happens during a solar eclipse. You are standing in a quiet field. The horizon is still gold with afternoon light, but something in the air has shifted. Shadows grow longer and sharper, the wind hushes, and even the birds seem to wait. Above you, the moon begins its slow, perfect journey across the sun, a cosmic alignment that has been rehearsed for millions of years. This is more than an astronomical event. It is a moment when three worlds, sun, moon, and earth, meet in flawless balance. And you are here to witness it. If you find comfort in these quiet voyages through science, I invite you to like this video, subscribe to The Thoughtful Night, and share in the comments where in the world you're listening from. I love knowing which corners of the planet we're exploring together. So, let us begin where every eclipse begins, with the meeting of three bodies in the vastness of space. The story of a solar eclipse begins with something you cannot see. Not the sun, not the moon, but the shadow the moon casts across the earth. It is not a small shadow. It is a sweeping, inky brushstroke laid across the curve of our planet, moving faster than any storm, faster than the turning of the earth beneath it. From the vantage point of space, it looks like a dark coin sliding across a glowing marble. From here on the ground, it arrives as a subtle dimming, as if someone has turned a great dimmer switch on the sky. But this is no trick of the atmosphere. It is the umbra, the moon's deepest shadow, a place where the sun is completely hidden from view. The moon is small compared to the sun, yet it can cover it entirely because of a coincidence of cosmic geometry. The sun is about 400 times wider than the moon, and also about 400 times farther away. To our eyes, from our particular place in space, they appear almost exactly the same size. This perfect proportion means the moon can slip in front of the sun like a coin over a distant lamp, creating the spectacle we call a total solar eclipse. But the moon's shadow is more than one thing. Closest to the moon is the umbra, where the sun is blocked completely, plunging the land into sudden night. Surrounding it is the penumbra, a lighter shadow where the sun is only partially obscured. And in rare alignments, when the moon is slightly too far from Earth to fully cover the sun, there is the antumbra, a place where the sun forms a bright ring of fire around the moon. Here on Earth, the path of totality, the narrow strip where the umbra falls, may be just 100 to 200 kilometers wide. Outside of it, people see only a partial eclipse. But inside it, for just a few minutes, the sun vanishes completely and the sky transforms. The speed of this shadow is astonishing. Because the Earth is rotating and the moon is orbiting at over 3,600 kilometers per hour, the umbra races across the surface at speeds of up to 1,700 kilometers per hour. It touches one place for only a fleeting moment, yet in that instant, all who stand within it are connected by the rarest of experiences. Imagine standing in the open as that shadow approaches. You cannot see it clearly, not like a cloud rolling in, but you feel it. The light changes in a way that seems to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Colors dull, edges sharpen, and the warmth of the sun begins to fade. Long ago, before we understood the mechanics of the cosmos, this advancing darkness was a thing of fear. For our ancestors, the sun's disappearance could mean divine displeasure, cosmic battles, or the swallowing of the world by a great beast. Even now, knowing the exact mathematics that predict it, the arrival of the moon's shadow stirs something deep and primal in us. The umbra's journey across the Earth is fleeting. At most, totality lasts just over 7 minutes, and that's under the rarest, most favorable conditions. Usually, it is far shorter. The shadow rushes on, leaving each witness with the sensation of having been briefly touched by the infinite. Above all, a solar eclipse reminds us that shadows are not merely absences of light. They are connections, invisible threads stretching from the moon, across the void, to the surface of our world. When you stand in the path of totality, you are standing in a shadow cast across 250,000 miles of space. It is a reminder that even in darkness, we are part of a grand alignment, one so precise that the difference between seeing a total eclipse and missing it entirely can be a matter of just a few kilometers. And so, the shadow moves on, a silent traveler over seas, forests, and cities. It is the quiet herald of what is to come, the gradual, breathtaking covering of the sun, the change in light, the transformation of the world. But before the sky grows strange and the stars appear in daytime, the eclipse begins much more gently, with a single, perfect curve taking a tiny bite from the sun. That moment, when the moon's journey truly begins for the observer, is where we must go next. The solar eclipse is not an accident. It is a dance, one written into the very fabric of our solar system, and we are simply fortunate enough to be in the right place and time to watch it unfold. The dancers are three: the sun, the moon, and the earth. The sun stands at the center, vast and constant, its light streaming outward in all directions. The earth turns in its steady rhythm, carrying us through days and nights. And the moon circles us, a quiet companion tracing an endless path in space. From our perspective, the moon seems to glide across the sun only on special occasions. If its orbit were perfectly aligned with Earth's path around the sun, an eclipse could happen every month. But the moon's path is tilted by about 5 degrees, like a ring set at a slight angle. Most months, it passes above or below the sun in our sky, and no eclipse occurs. Only when the moon crosses the invisible line where its orbit intersects the Earth's path, a place astronomers call a node, can it line up precisely with the sun. These crossings happen in short windows each year, known as eclipse seasons. Most pass unnoticed, with the moon and sun meeting only partially in our sky. But now and then, alignment is exact. The moon slips directly between Earth and sun, and the dance becomes something extraordinary. This movement is not hurried. It unfolds with a slow grace, the kind that draws your attention without demanding it. The moon's orbit around Earth takes about 27 days, but its pace in the sky during an eclipse feels deliberate, almost ceremonial. If you were to watch from space, you would see the moon casting its narrow shadow onto the curved surface of Earth, the path of totality sweeping across continents and oceans. On the ground, this same movement feels deeply personal. The sun, so steadfast every other day of your life, now changes before your eyes. The geometry is exquisite. The sun is about 1.4 million kilometers wide, and yet it sits 150 million kilometers away. The moon is just 3,474 kilometers across, small enough to fit between Los Angeles and New York with room to spare, but only 384,000 kilometers from Earth. These proportions mean that from our viewpoint, they appear almost exactly the same size in the sky. It is this perfect illusion that allows the moon to cover the sun so precisely, to transform daylight into twilight in the middle of the day. But the dance is not always identical. Sometimes the moon is slightly farther away in its orbit and cannot fully block the sun, leaving a brilliant ring of light in what is called an annular eclipse. Sometimes the shadow just grazes Earth, and only certain regions see totality while others see a partial cover. Every solar eclipse is unique. The choreography changes subtly with each performance. For ancient sky watchers, this was the work of gods, spirits, or cosmic creatures. For modern observers, it is the work of gravity, orbital mechanics, and time. Yet knowing the science does not make it less wondrous. If anything, it deepens the beauty to understand that this isn't chaos, but a precise, predictable pattern that has played out for billions of years. The moon's part in this dance has been slowly changing. Each year, it drifts about 3.8 centimeters farther away from Earth. In the distant future, This will mean the moon will no longer appear large enough to completely cover the sun. The age of total solar eclipses will end. We are living in a golden moment in cosmic history, and like all golden moments, it will not last forever. For now, though, the dance continues. The moon glides along its path, drawing closer to the point where its shadow will meet you. The air is still ordinary daylight, but something inside you knows that the pattern of light is about to change. Soon, the first visible sign will appear, the moment when the moon, invisible against the bright sky until now, begins to take its first, perfect bite from the sun. That is the opening step for the audience on Earth, and where our journey next takes us. It begins so quietly, you could almost miss it. One moment, the sun is whole, a blazing, round lantern in the sky, and the next, a small, perfect curve seems to vanish from its edge. It is as if some invisible artist has taken a fine brush and painted away a piece of the light. This is the first contact. The instant when the moon's edge touches the sun's disk and the slow covering begins. For most of the day, the moon moves unseen in the daylight sky, too faint to notice against the sun's brilliance. But now, its presence is revealed, not by its own light, but by the light it steals. From a safe distance, through protective glasses or pinhole projection, you can see it clearly. A black arc, clean and sharp, cutting into the sun's golden glare. It does not shimmer like a cloud. It does not fade in and out like a shadow from a passing bird. It is solid, absolute, the beginning of an event written in the heavens. The world, at first, carries on as if nothing is different. Cars hum along the roads. The breeze stirs the leaves. Birdsong continues, unaware of the slow change above. But if you pay attention, you notice something subtle. The light itself begins to feel altered. The sun is still far from hidden, but its warmth softens. Shadows stretch a fraction longer. The color of the day becomes slightly muted, like a painting under glass. This is not yet dramatic, but it is the first whisper that something extraordinary is approaching. The moon's motion is deliberate. Minute by minute, it slips further across the sun, the bite growing larger. At this stage, the change is more a matter of feeling than sight. Your mind knows daylight should be constant, and yet, there's a sense that the day is leaning toward twilight, even though the clock says otherwise. In ancient times, this was the moment when watchers might feel unease. They would see the sun being eaten and wonder what force was at work. In China, they spoke of a celestial dragon consuming the sun. In parts of South America, the story told of a great jaguar in the sky. The partial eclipse was a warning, a cosmic imbalance that needed to be set right. Today, we understand the geometry behind it. The moon, locked in its orbit, is simply moving between us and the sun. There is no malice in it, no magic beyond the deep magic of gravity itself. Yet even knowing this, the sight carries a quiet power. As the moon covers more of the sun, shadows on the ground change in strange ways. If you stand under a tree, the spaces between its leaves become tiny pinhole cameras, projecting dozens of crescent suns onto the ground. Your own shadow sharpens, edges becoming unnaturally crisp. It is as if the sun's light has become more focused, more precise, and yet less abundant. The air begins to cool. It is a gentle, creeping chill, the kind that feels like the start of evening, though hours remain before sunset. Somewhere in the distance, you might hear a bird call, then silence. Nature notices the change before we consciously do. People react in different ways. Some fall silent, sensing the gravity of the moment. Others whisper to one another, sharing what they see through their protective filters. Cameras click. Eyes widen. For everyone, there is a feeling that time has slowed, that the ordinary rules of daylight no longer fully apply. And still, the moon moves on. The bite becomes a deep crescent. The sun, which has always seemed round and whole, now looks like a luminous arc hanging in the sky. The light is strange, not fully bright, not quite dim, but of a quality that the human eye rarely sees. We are halfway to totality now. The anticipation grows. Even if you try to go about your day, something in the periphery of your senses keeps calling you back to the sky. If you have been in the path of totality before, you know what is coming. The sudden transformation, the stars at midday, the corona's ghostly fire. If you have never seen it, your mind can only guess. But your body feels it. The cool air, the odd stillness, the light unlike any other day of your life. Soon, the sun will become a slender curve, thin as a smile at the horizon. And just beyond that, the most fleeting jewels of light will appear. The last beams shining through the mountains and valleys of the moon before the sun is hidden entirely. That moment, known as Bailey's beads, is the final step before day surrenders to the shadow. We are not there yet. The moon's covering is still in progress. But already, the world is leaning toward the strange and the beautiful. The first bite was just the invitation. The real magic is still waiting in the wings. You may not notice the exact moment it starts, only that something feels unusual. The sun is still shining, but the daylight around you no longer looks quite the same. It is not like a cloud passing over, where shadows blur and the light turns gray. This change is stranger, more delicate, and more profound. The color of the day shifts towards something silvery, almost metallic. It is as if the warmth has been drained from the air, leaving behind a cooler, softer hue. If you hold out your hand, the shadow it casts looks sharper than usual, the edges outlined with precision. The sunlight that remains is coming from a thinner arc of the sun, so it behaves differently, less scattered, more focused. The effect is uncanny. You are still in daylight, and yet it feels like standing in a world caught between day and night. Look at the sky above you. The blue begins to deepen, no longer the open, pale blue of midday, but something richer, edged with violet. This is the atmosphere responding to the sun's changing light. Normally, the sun's full glare scatters short blue wavelengths across the sky, creating the bright dome above. But now, with much of the sun's disk hidden, that scattering weakens. It's as though the sky has been turned down a notch, its brilliance softened. Even colors on the ground appear altered. Greens lose their summer warmth, taking on a cooler tone. The reds and oranges of clothing or flowers seem muted. Everything is still visible, but the palette of the world has shifted toward a softer, dreamlike spectrum. Animals notice too. Birds pause their songs, as though uncertain of the hour. Bees may hurry back to their hives. If you are near water, you might see fish swimming closer to the surface, reacting as they would at dusk. Nature is tuned to the rhythms of light and dark, and the eclipse, even before totality, confuses that rhythm. The air cools further. It's a slow, creeping chill, almost like the moment after the sun dips behind the horizon. Goosebumps might rise on your arms. If you take a deep breath, the air smells fresher, as it often does in the early evening, though sunset is still far away. This cooling isn't just in your mind. During a solar eclipse, the sudden loss of sunlight can drop local temperatures by several degrees. The Earth's surface and the air just above it begin to release stored heat, changing the feel of the world around you. You might notice the shadows now have a peculiar doubling effect. Hold your fingers slightly apart, and the spaces between them will project tiny, crescent-shaped beams of light onto the ground. These are miniature versions of the partially covered sun, created naturally by the narrowing light. Under a tree, the patches of sunlight between leaves no longer appear as circles. They are hundreds of tiny crescents, each a silent mirror of the sky. Somewhere along the horizon, the light begins to do something extraordinary. Instead of the gradual fading of a normal sunset, the horizon stays bright in a full circle, like a band of gold and orange surrounding you in every direction. This happens because sunlight is still reaching regions outside the path of totality, curving through the atmosphere and painting the edges of your world. It is as though you are standing inside the center of a glowing dome, the edges aflame while the ceiling darkens. People often describe this stage as otherworldly. It is familiar. You recognize the air, the trees, the ground beneath you, but the quality of the light changes how you experience all of it. It is both unsettling and deeply beautiful. It feels like a dream you don't want to wake from. This stage, just before totality, is also when anticipation peaks. You know the moon is almost in place. The sun's disk is now only a sliver, a thin curve of molten gold. The light on your face feels weaker, and the shadows grow longer still. Your senses sharpen. The silence in the air feels heavier, as though sound itself is preparing for something. Even your heartbeat might seem a little slower, responding to the hush that has settled over the world. And then, a flash. Just before totality, the last beams of sunlight shine through the valleys and mountains along the moon's edge, creating points of brilliant light against the dark disk. They sparkle like diamonds set in black velvet. This is Bailey's beads, a fleeting, dazzling display lasting only seconds. One bead grows brighter than the rest, flaring in a burst of radiance. It is the diamond ring effect, the last, brilliant note before the sun disappears entirely. In that instant, the strange silver light of the eclipse gives way to the deep shadow of totality. You are standing at the threshold now, between day and night, between light and shadow. The color that changed so subtly over the past hour has completed its transformation. The world is ready for the eclipse's heart, the brief, breathtaking moment when the sun is gone and the stars return to the sky. That is where we will go next, into the darkness of totality itself, the edge of the moon's mountains. It happens in seconds, yet it holds you for a lifetime. The sun is now a thin, fragile curve, nearly gone, but not quite. And along that curve, something extraordinary begins to appear. The moon, though it seems perfectly round to the naked eye, is not smooth. Its surface is a rugged landscape of mountains, valleys, and craters. When it passes in front of the sun, these peaks and depressions shape the light in ways you can see from Earth. As the last sliver of the sun's disk disappears, beams of sunlight slip through the deepest lunar valleys, while the highest peaks block the rest. The result is a chain of tiny, dazzling points of light along the moon's edge, bright, jewel-like sparks against the deepening shadow. These are Bailey's beads, named for the English astronomer Francis Baily, who described them in detail in the 19th century. From where you stand, they look like drops of molten gold suspended in blackness. Each bead is a miniature sunrise or sunset, filtered through alien terrain 250,000 miles away. They flicker, shimmer, and vanish as the moon continues its steady movement across the sun. And then, one bead remains. It shines brighter than the rest, radiant and pure, as the surrounding sky grows dark. This is the diamond ring effect, a moment so beautiful it can make even the most practiced observers gasp. The diamond ring is not just light, it is contrast. It is the blinding brilliance of the last sunlight meeting the deep shadow of the moon's silhouette. It is the sharp edge of day colliding with the velvet of night. For a heartbeat, it feels like the sun is wearing a crown, one single, flawless gem catching the last of its fire. Photographs can capture its shape, but not its effect on you. The human eye sees it as something more than an image. It is a sensation, a moment that feels as though time itself has paused to let you witness it. Even knowing the science, even expecting it, you feel the same awe as those who first saw it thousands of years ago, not understanding why the sun would flare in such a strange and fleeting way. Astronomers treasure these seconds. The beads and the diamond ring mark the precise transition into totality. For researchers, they are also an opportunity. By timing them and comparing their appearance from different locations, they can refine measurements of the moon's profile and confirm details of its surface features. But for most of us, standing in the path of totality, the science becomes background music to the experience. You're not counting seconds or taking measurements. You're feeling the last threads of daylight slipping away. The beads fade. The diamond's brilliance softens. And then, the sun is gone. Above you is now a perfect black circle, surrounded by a pale, ghostly halo. The stars appear, faint at first, then more clearly as your eyes adjust. The light you've known every day of your life has been replaced with something strange and delicate. It's easy to forget, in these seconds before totality fully settles in, that the moon's edge is still there, sharp and unyielding. Every bead of light you just saw traveled across millions of kilometers of space, bent by no glass or mirror, shaped only by the silent peaks and valleys of a rocky world. Think about that. You've just watched sunlight that has traveled for 8 minutes and 20 seconds from the sun, only to be filtered, not by clouds or atmosphere, but by the jagged edge of another celestial body. Each bead was a story of light's journey, ending here on Earth, in your eyes, in this precise moment. The moon's edge is never the same twice. Every eclipse, the beads will appear in different positions, with different brightness, because the moon's orientation changes slightly, and because the path of the eclipse passes over different regions of its surface. It is a cosmic signature, unique to each performance. For the next few minutes, the sun's face will remain hidden. You will see its atmosphere, the corona, stretching outward in ethereal streamers. But before we turn to that sight, it's worth pausing to hold on to this threshold moment. The beads and the diamond ring are the sun's farewell, the last sparkle before the curtain of shadow closes. People often say this stage is bittersweet. It's the most brilliant light you'll see during the eclipse, but it's also the light you must let go of to experience the heart of the event. You trade the glitter of the diamond for the quiet beauty of the corona. And so, as the moon's rugged edge finishes its passage over the last of the sun's surface, the brilliance fades entirely. The black disk settles into place. Day has given way to a strange, hushed night. It is totality now. The world around you has changed completely. Above, the sun is no longer a burning circle, but a dark void framed by light as delicate as silk. That is where we go next, into the center of the eclipse, the moment when the day has vanished, the stars have returned, and the universe feels impossibly close. The shadow arrives not with a shout, but with a hush so deep it feels ancient. You are standing in that quiet field, and the last sliver of sunlight is shrinking to a silver thread. The world's colors have turned otherworldly, neither day nor night, but a strange in-between. Your heartbeat feels louder in the stillness. This is the moment the eclipse has been leading to, totality. It begins in an instant. The final spark of sunlight, the dazzling diamond ring effect, vanishes behind the moon's silhouette. Darkness falls like a soft curtain drawn across the earth. Yet it is not the darkness of night. This is a darkness that seems alive, a shadow cast directly by the moon itself, racing across continents at thousands of kilometers per hour, carrying you into its center. Above you, the sun is no longer a burning disk. It is a black circle surrounded by a delicate white crown, the solar corona. You have never seen the sun like this before. The corona, usually invisible in daylight, now unfurls like shimmering silk in the sky. Its tendrils twist and flow outward, shaped by the sun's magnetic fields, reaching millions of kilometers into space. The air is cooler now. A chill brushes your skin, and the temperature may drop by several degrees in just minutes. Your senses sharpen, every sound is crisp, every movement noticeable. The wind has stilled, as though the atmosphere is pausing to watch. In the distance, you might hear animals stir in confusion, crickets beginning their nighttime song, birds retreating to roost, even flowers folding their petals. In this strange twilight, colors along the horizon glow in a soft gradient, orange, pink, and violet, encircling you in every direction. This is because the sunlight is still touching the edges of the shadow far away, scattering through the atmosphere, wrapping the horizon in a halo of false sunset. It is a sight you can only see inside the shadow's heart. Looking up, you see stars and planets now visible in the deepened sky. Venus gleams brightly, a gemstone near the sun's darkened form. Jupiter might be visible too, a quiet beacon millions of kilometers away. For a brief moment, day and night share the same sky. This is when astronomers work quickly, for the corona's appearance can change from one eclipse to the next. Its flowing shapes reveal secrets about the sun's magnetic behavior, whether the corona spreads in long streamers during a quiet solar cycle or bursts with complex loops during active years. For scientists, these minutes are a precious opportunity to study what is usually hidden. For the rest of us, they are simply magic. Time feels both frozen and fleeting. You know that this darkness is temporary, perhaps only 2 minutes, maybe as long as 7 if you are lucky, but every second feels like a gift. You notice your own breathing slowing, as though your body knows it is in the presence of something rare and ancient. You are sharing the exact alignment of 3 celestial bodies that has occurred countless times in Earth's history, yet will never happen in exactly this way again. The silence of the land is almost complete. Even the insects seem to wait. You think about the people across centuries who have stood in a similar darkness. Ancient farmers, kings, travelers, scientists, all looking upward with the same mix of awe and wonder. In that thought, you feel connected across time. And then, without warning, the edge of the moon begins to glow. A brilliant spark of light flares at one side, the second diamond ring effect. Daylight rushes back like a tide returning to shore. The shadow slips away across the land, leaving warmth and brightness behind. The animals stir again. Birdsong resumes. The wind stirs the grass. It feels as if the earth itself has taken a deep breath and exhaled. And you stand there, trying to hold on to the feeling, knowing you have just witnessed one of the rarest and most beautiful sights in the natural world. The totality is over, but the memory will linger in your mind, in your heart, and perhaps even in your dreams tonight. Now the moon drifts onward in its eternal orbit, still covering part of the sun, but letting more light spill into the day. The eclipse moves toward its closing act. But in these moments after totality, you can still feel the hush it left behind. Let us follow it now, into the fading phases of the moon's passage and the gentle return of an ordinary day. In the ordinary light of day, the sun's face is blinding, fierce, and uncompromising. Its brilliance hides everything delicate, everything subtle, behind a curtain of overwhelming glare. The corona, that fragile halo of light, remains invisible to us, not because it is not there, but because the sun's raw intensity drowns it out. And yet, in those rare, perfect minutes of totality, when the moon moves with exquisite precision across the sun's fiery disk, the curtain is drawn back. The solar corona steps out of hiding, shimmering like the gossamer train of some celestial bride, its pale tendrils unfurling into the darkness. Look closely, though look here is not an action of the eyes alone, but of the heart, and you'll see it stretch outward, an ethereal geometry of light. Its shape is never fixed. Some eclipses reveal it as a smooth oval, silk threads sweeping gently away. Others show an intricate burst, like angelic wings fanned open in a silent proclamation. The poetry of the corona's beauty is only deepened by the science behind it. This is not mere light spilling from the sun's surface. The corona is the sun's outer atmosphere, a vast realm of plasma, so hot and diffuse it escapes the sun's gravity. And here lies a mystery that has challenged astronomers for decades. Why is the corona far hotter than the surface beneath it? The sun's visible surface, the photosphere, burns at about 5,500 degrees Celsius, already enough to reduce anything we know into vapor. But the corona blazes at temperatures in the millions. This paradox defies everyday logic, as if the air above a fire burned hotter than the fire itself. The answer lies in the sun's restless magnetic fields, vast, looping lines of force that twist, snap, and reconnect, flinging energy into the corona like invisible whips. This magnetic violence heats the plasma to astonishing extremes, turning it into a shimmering crown of light. Here, science and poetry intertwine. These pale streamers we see in an eclipse are shaped by the sun's magnetic field, invisible lines that guide the motion of particles the way a river shapes the flow of water. If the sun's magnetic field is in a calm phase, the corona lies smooth and symmetric. When it is agitated, its edges bristle with spiky plumes and branching filaments, as if the sun is wearing a crown of lightning. From Earth, this crown extends far into space, reaching millions of kilometers outward. Yet the corona's glow is so faint that only during a total solar eclipse, when the moon perfectly blocks the sun's photosphere, can our eyes drink it in without instruments. In that deep twilight, its light seems almost to breathe, a living presence suspended in the sky. Ancient peoples did not see the corona as a scientific puzzle. They saw it as a vision, a sign, a miracle. Even now, in an age of satellites and space telescopes, to stand beneath it is to feel a stirring beyond analysis. You know, with a certainty older than language, that you are watching the sun revealed in a way it almost never allows. For astronomers, the brief unveiling of the corona is an opportunity, a chance to study its structure, to search for subtle changes in temperature, to understand how solar wind escapes into space. For poets, it is something else entirely, a whisper from the sun itself, saying, "I am more than my glare." And there is something profoundly humbling about this dual truth. To see the corona is to glimpse the sun's vulnerability and its grandeur at the same time. It is a halo of both beauty and ferocity, a reminder that even the mightiest star wears veils. During totality, your eyes may wander over the corona's intricate shapes. You might see thin rays shooting outward, merging into broader fans of light. You might see faint arcs and loops, like ghostly ribbons twisting into infinity. Some of these are shaped by the sun's 11-year cycle of magnetic activity, so each eclipse wears its own unique crown, never to be repeated in quite the same way. And as you stand there, time feels strangely suspended. The corona's glow is soft, yet it commands your full attention. It is not loud, not forceful, but it is undeniable. You sense, without words, that this is a view shared by all who have stood in the moon's shadow for as long as humans have walked the earth. Then, almost without warning, the magic begins to fade. The diamond ring of light flares on the opposite side of the sun. Daylight reasserts itself with the speed of a sigh, and the corona slips once more behind the sun's overpowering light. It will remain there, hidden, every day until the next time the moon and sun conspire to draw back the veil. And when that moment comes, the corona will be different, shaped anew by the restless tides of the sun's magnetism, ready to reveal itself again for those lucky enough to stand in the shadow's path. So we remember that the sun is not simply a blazing sphere, but a layered, living star, each layer with its own mysteries. We remember that beauty often hides in plain sight, waiting for the rare moments when conditions align perfectly for us to see it. And with that vision still shimmering in our minds, let us travel backward in time, to an era before we understood what we were looking at. An era when the corona's light was seen not as plasma and magnetism, but as the breath of gods, the wings of spirits, the sign of something immense moving in the heavens. Long before telescopes, satellites, or the quiet hum of astronomical data, humans looked upward and saw the sun vanish in the middle of the day, and felt both fear and wonder rise in their hearts. For our ancestors, a solar eclipse was never just a passing shadow. It was a story written in the sky, a drama between gods, beasts, and celestial beings. In China, the ancient myth told of a great dragon who devoured the sun. The people would beat drums and clang pots, hoping the noise would frighten the dragon away. In Norse legend, it was the wolf skull who chased and caught the sun, its brief capture plunging the world into darkness. In India, the demon Rahu was said to swallow the sun as revenge against the gods, but because Rahu had no body, the sun would slip out again, returning its light to the world. These stories were more than superstition. They were a way of making sense of the unexplainable, of weaving the incomprehensible motions of the heavens into the fabric of human life. The sudden stillness of birds, the eerie drop in temperature, the strange shadows. All of these changes added to the sense of something supernatural unfolding above. But while the myths gave comfort or warning, some minds began to search for patterns. The Babylonians, over 2,500 years ago, kept meticulous records of eclipses, noting their intervals. They discovered the Saros cycle, roughly 18 years and 11 days, after which solar and lunar eclipses repeat in a predictable pattern. This knowledge gave them power, for predicting an eclipse meant predicting a moment when the heavens themselves would appear to change. In ancient Greece, philosophers and early scientists such as Thales of Miletus studied these cycles, and according to some accounts, Thales correctly predicted a solar eclipse in 585 BC, an event so startling that it halted a war between the Lydians and the Medes. For a few minutes, two armies stood together under the same darkened sky, their weapons lowered, the cosmic event more powerful than human conflict. In other cultures, eclipses shaped calendars. The Maya, with their extraordinary grasp of astronomy, wove eclipse predictions into their complex calendar systems. Egyptian priests watched the sun with ceremonial precision, recording the timing of rare events to align festivals with celestial signs. In some cases, rulers used eclipses as tools of control, either by claiming the power to cause or prevent them or by using predictions to awe their subjects. But the eclipse was not just a political or spiritual event. For millennia, it was also a teacher. Each disappearance of the sun carried clues about the cosmos, about the shape of the Earth's shadow, about the movement of the moon, about the clockwork regularity of celestial mechanics. The ancient Greek understanding that the moon was a sphere, not a flat disk, was reinforced by the way it gradually covered the sun's face. Even without our modern technology, humanity was beginning to see the eclipse not as a random miracle, but as a rare and beautiful alignment in a universe of moving parts. The myths still lived on, because stories feed the heart in ways numbers never can, but alongside them grew an understanding of the mechanics behind the magic. And perhaps, that's the most human thing of all, to know the science and still feel the awe, to stand in the path of the moon's shadow and realize that while we can predict the moment down to the second, the feeling in our chest is something no calculation can measure. From dragons and wolves to cycles and predictions, the eclipse has been our companion through ages of curiosity. Every culture, in its own way, has stepped into that sudden twilight and asked the same question: why? Now, with the myths in our pockets and the science in our minds, we can watch an eclipse and feel connected, not just to the sun and moon, but to the countless generations before us who looked up and saw the same mystery. And so, the dance continues, the sun blazing, the moon gliding, and Earth turning beneath them, just as it always has. The past is not gone. It lingers in every gasp of surprise, every shadow stretching across the ground, every heartbeat that quickens when day briefly turns to night. Let us now follow that shadow as it moves across our world, tracing a path that is both precise and poetic. Imagine standing in the sun's warm light, feeling its steady presence, when suddenly the brightness begins to dim, not like a cloud passing by, but as though something vast and invisible is sliding into place. You glance up, protected by your eclipse glasses, and see it. The moon, inching across the sun's face, a dark curve cutting into the golden circle. This shadow is no illusion. It is real, immense, and it is moving. The moon's umbra, its deepest, darkest shadow, is cast onto Earth like a pinpoint of darkness in the immensity of space. From far above, it looks like a small, black spot sliding across the planet's surface. But on the ground, within that spot, it feels like the entire world has changed. The path the umbra traces is called the path of totality, and it is remarkably narrow. At most, it's about 160 kilometers wide, a thin ribbon of night carved into the day. If you stand outside this path, you might still see a partial eclipse, where the moon only takes a bite from the sun. But step into the path of totality, and the sun disappears entirely. The difference between the two is the difference between a sketch and a painting. Both are beautiful, but only one immerses you completely. The shadow moves fast, incredibly fast. Depending on the eclipse, the umbra can race across Earth's surface at speeds between 1,600 and 8,000 kilometers per hour. This speed is not constant. It changes depending on the angles of the sun, moon, and Earth. Near sunrise or sunset along the path, the shadow seems to crawl, while near the midpoint of its journey, it can streak by in minutes. Consider this. The longest possible total solar eclipse is about 7 minutes and 32 seconds, though most last far less. That's all the time you have, just a few minutes in the moon's shadow before it slips away. The rarity and brevity of this experience are what make eclipse chasers travel thousands of kilometers, crossing oceans and continents just to stand in that narrow band of darkness for a few fleeting moments. From above Earth, the path looks like a curved stripe, arcing gracefully due to our planet's rotation. This curve isn't random. It follows the combined motions of the moon orbiting Earth and Earth spinning beneath it. When the alignment is perfect, the shadow begins at one edge of the world, sweeps across oceans, mountains, deserts, and cities, and disappears off the opposite horizon. Inside the path, the transformation is both visual and sensory. Light fades in a strange, silvery way, not like twilight, but sharper, more otherworldly. Colors in the landscape change subtly, greens deepening, shadows sharpening. Animals react instinctively, birds quiet, insects hum differently, and sometimes creatures begin their evening routines, fooled into thinking night has fallen. Temperature drops are noticeable. On a hot summer day, the air might cool by several degrees within minutes, a breeze often stirring as the sun's heat briefly wanes. If clouds are present, they darken dramatically, turning into low silhouettes against a deepening sky. Outside the umbra lies the penumbra, the lighter part of the moon's shadow. Here, the sun is only partially obscured, and the effect is gentler but still striking. As you move from the penumbra into the umbra, the change is sudden. One moment, daylight is muted. The next, the world is plunged into a deep, uncanny dusk. The path of totality never repeats in exactly the same place. Because the moon's orbit is tilted relative to Earth's, each eclipse's shadow falls along a unique track. This means the exact same spot on Earth may wait centuries to experience another total eclipse. Some regions might never see one at all in recorded human lifetimes. For ancient travelers, the path of shadows was unknowable. You had to be in the right place at the right time by chance. For modern observers, it's a journey we can plan, chasing the path as it sweeps across continents. Airplanes have even flown along the shadow's route, prolonging totality by racing with it. Standing in that path is like standing inside the alignment itself. Earth, moon, and sun lined up with you caught at the intersection. You feel small, yet deeply connected to something vast and precise. The knowledge that this shadow is as wide as a country, yet delicate enough to slip away in minutes, makes the experience almost unreal. When totality ends, the sun reemerges with a burst of light called the diamond ring effect. A brilliant flash as the last sliver of sun escapes the moon's edge. The landscape brightens rapidly, colors return to normal, and warmth flows back into the air. The shadow races onward, leaving you with a memory that feels both infinite and impossibly brief. Each time it happens, it is unique, a different path, a different sky, a different world beneath the moving darkness. And as the moon's shadow leaves one place behind, it touches another, keeping its silent appointment with the next corner of Earth. The moment arrives without warning, a glint, like a jewel catching sunlight after long hours of darkness. The diamond ring effect bursts into existence, dazzling the eyes, sharp and brilliant against the fading shadow. It is the first breath after holding it too long, the first heartbeat after a pause. The sun's light, hidden for precious minutes, comes rushing back with a quiet ferocity. It spills across the land, flooding valleys, brushing mountain ridges, pooling across open fields. Colors bloom again, not all at once, but in a slow unfurling. The pale, ethereal light of totality warms into gold. The strange violet shadows retreat, and greens and blues return to the world. The air changes first in temperature. You feel it on your skin, like a blanket being placed over your shoulders. Moments earlier, the eclipse had stolen warmth away, dropping the temperature by several degrees. Now, the earth exhales, and warmth creeps back into the soil, the leaves, and your fingertips. Birdsong resumes cautiously. A single chirp, then another, as if the birds are checking the sky for safety. Insects, too, stir from their eclipse stillness, returning to the hum and buzz of daylight life. It is as if the world was suspended in a photograph and is now slowly moving again. But those who stood in the path of totality do not move so quickly. They stand still, watching, even as the shadow races on toward the horizon. It feels wrong to look away, like closing a book before the last page has been read. Your eyes trace the sun, now whole again, but forever changed in your memory. There is an afterglow to witnessing a total eclipse, not the lingering light in the sky, but the feeling it leaves behind in you. It is an intimacy with the universe that you cannot rush. In the crowd, you see faces half smiling, half awed. Some are silent. Others are already sharing hurried words with friends. But all of you carry the same invisible imprint. We were here when the moon covered the sun. And as you reflect, you realize you did not just see an astronomical event. You were inside a moment that has existed for billions of years and will not exist forever. You were in the middle of a cosmic alignment that made the air grow still, the animals pause, the earth cool, and millions of people lift their eyes skyward in the same breath. Long after the shadow is gone, the experience lingers in the body. Your pupils, dilated for the darkness, take a moment to shrink back. Your skin feels the sunlight more keenly than before, as though you have been away from it for days. And somewhere deep inside, there is a softness, a humility in knowing how small you are, and yet how lucky to be part of a planet that can stage such a thing. The eclipse is over, but you are not quite ready to return to the ordinary rhythm of the day. You turn away slowly, taking with you the secret knowledge of what it feels like when day becomes night and night becomes day again. And though the shadow has passed, you know the memory will always stay. So, before we move forward, before the science carries us into the future, let us pause here for just a heartbeat more. Because the truth is, these moments will not last forever. We think of eclipses as timeless, as though they have always been here, as though they will always return. But the cosmos is never still. Even the relationships between the sun, moon, and earth are changing, quietly, over ages far longer than any human life. The moon, our silent companion, is drifting away from us, not rushing, not leaping, just gliding, as if carried by an invisible tide. Every year, it moves about 3.8 centimeters farther from Earth. It is a speed you could measure with a ruler, yet it changes the fate of eclipses forever. The reason lies deep in the pull between Earth and Moon. Tides, driven by the Moon's gravity, rise and fall in our oceans. This movement of water drags against the planet's rotation, ever so slightly slowing Earth's spin. And in the physics of celestial mechanics, slowing one partner means giving the other more room to roam. The moon gains a tiny push outward, the same kind of push a skater gives a partner's hand before they drift apart across the ice. Over millions of years, this gentle parting adds up. In the distant past, the moon was much closer. Fossilized coral and ancient tidal patterns suggest that hundreds of millions of years ago, total eclipses lasted longer. The moon loomed larger in the sky, its shadow darker and wider. Back then, the alignment between sun and moon was even more perfect. Today, we live in a delicate moment of balance. By sheer coincidence, the moon is just the right size and just the right distance to cover the sun almost exactly. Stand on the Earth at the right time, and the sun's bright disk disappears behind the moon, revealing the solar corona. It is one of the rarest visual symmetries in the known universe. But this balance is temporary. As the moon recedes, it will slowly appear smaller in our sky. The day will come when it will no longer be able to completely cover the sun. Instead of total eclipses, future observers, if any still look up, will see annular eclipses, where the moon passes in front but leaves a bright ring of sun blazing around its edges. The breathtaking darkness of totality will be gone. How long until that day? The calculations suggest that in about 600 million years, there will be no more total solar eclipses on Earth. It sounds impossibly far, a span of time beyond human imagination, yet in cosmic terms, it is just a brief chapter ahead. The thought brings a strange tenderness to the present. We happen to live in an era when total eclipses are still possible. We are here at the overlap, that fleeting intersection between the moon's closeness and its inevitable drift away. We are witnesses in a time that will not come again. The rarity becomes even more profound when you consider the vastness of space. Most planets do not have moons that can produce such perfect eclipses. Our moon is unusually large compared to Earth, unusually positioned, unusually capable of creating this spectacle. It is as though the solar system conspired to give us this show, and then set a timer on it. In imagining that far future without total eclipses, the mind wanders to what else might be different. Will there still be oceans to raise tides? Will there still be humans to watch? Will there even be an Earth? Or will the sun itself be nearing the end of its own life, swelling into a red giant? The answers lie too far ahead to grasp. But here, in our present, we can feel the weight of knowing that the gift is temporary. When you watch a total eclipse now, you are watching not only a rare event in space, but also an event that belongs to a specific slice of cosmic history. You are a participant in a tradition that the planet will one day be unable to continue. It is a reminder that nothing, not even the grandest patterns in the heavens, is permanent. And perhaps that is part of its beauty. We value the fragile because it cannot be repeated forever. A single flower in a short spring, a comet's visit once in a lifetime, a fleeting human voice in the wind. The eclipse is one of these. A moment made precious because the universe will take it away. When the moon finally drifts far enough that the last total eclipse happens, no one will mark the date. There will be no audience to notice, no applause when the curtain falls for the final time. It will end quietly, as the cosmos does most things. But here and now, we can know it is coming, and let that knowledge deepen the awe we feel when the shadow falls. So next time the sun is swallowed by the moon, remember, you are not only seeing across space, you are seeing across time, a time that will one day close its window on this perfect alignment. The last traces of the eclipse have long faded, yet the feeling remains. It is the kind of sensation that sits in the heart like an echo, a quiet awareness that something vast has just brushed against the edges of your life. The sun shines again in its full brilliance. The moon continues along its silent path, and yet, you know, something has shifted in you. A solar eclipse is more than light and shadow. It is geometry made visible, timing made tangible. It is the rare moment when three wandering worlds, Earth, Moon, and Sun, fall into perfect alignment. Not almost perfect, not close enough, perfect. And that precision is a miracle of motion, balance, and cosmic choreography. In the everyday chaos of life, alignment is rare. The universe is a place of constant movement, planets spinning, moons orbiting, stars flaring, galaxies colliding. And yet, for a handful of minutes, the paths of these three bodies intersect in such a way that the great fire at the center of our solar system is hidden behind a smaller, colder world. The fact that the moon and the sun appear almost exactly the same size in our sky is a coincidence born of distance and scale. If the moon were much smaller or farther away, it could never cover the sun so completely. If the sun were a fraction larger in our sky, it would blaze on, untouched by the moon's shadow. That this alignment happens at all, and that it happens often enough for humans to witness it, is a quiet miracle. Not in the sense of something supernatural, but in the sense of a gift, a rare alignment of numbers, distances, and motions written into the laws of physics. Eclipses remind us that our place in the cosmos is not fixed. We are passengers on a moving world, carried through space along with everything we know and love. We are part of a solar system that is itself drifting around the center of the Milky Way, which in turn is moving toward other galaxies in a slow gravitational waltz. Nothing in this universe is still. And yet, here we are, for a moment, perfectly aligned. There is a lesson in that. The same forces that bring chaos and change can also bring moments of harmony. Life, like the universe, is full of motion and uncertainty, and yet sometimes, all the pieces fall into place. Sometimes, the path of your life and the path of something greater intersect, and you get to witness something unforgettable. But alignment, like everything, is temporary. Every eclipse reminds us that nothing lasts forever. The moon is slowly drifting away from Earth, about 3.8 centimeters each year. It is so gradual that no human lifetime will notice the change, and yet over millions of years, the effect will be profound. One day, far in the future, the moon will appear too small in our sky to fully cover the sun. There will still be eclipses, but never again total eclipses like the ones we know today. The era of total solar eclipses will end. We live in the narrow slice of cosmic history where they are possible, not in the distant past, before the moon had moved far enough away, and not in the distant future, after it has gone too far. We live in the golden window of totality. And whether we realize it or not, that is extraordinary. Knowing this adds another layer to the experience. To stand in the moon's shadow is to stand in a moment that will not last, not just for you, but for the universe itself. It's a reminder that beauty is often fleeting, that rarity is part of what makes an experience precious. As the thought settles, you might feel a sense of gratitude, not just for the eclipse, but for the privilege of existing in a time when such alignments can be seen and understood. Our ancestors saw eclipses too, but they may have met them with fear, awe, or divine interpretation. We meet them with both awe and understanding, holding science in one hand and wonder in the other. That combination, knowing the mechanics, yet feeling the magic, is perhaps the truest gift of living in this moment of cosmic history. It tells us that science does not strip away beauty, it deepens it. To know why the eclipse happens does not diminish the hush in your chest when the sun's light fades. It makes that hush feel earned, as if you've been let in on the quiet workings of the universe. And so, as the sun shines freely once more, you carry with you the memory of that alignment. Perhaps it becomes a metaphor for your life, a reminder that even in a restless, moving world, harmony can appear. That timing matters. That small things, a moon much smaller than the sun, can cast a great shadow when the moment is right. The universe, vast and indifferent, does not stage these events for us. And yet, they touch us. They make us feel part of something far larger than ourselves, as if the great clockwork of the cosmos briefly turned its face toward us and let us glimpse its inner workings. When you look back on the eclipse, perhaps you remember not just the darkness, but the light that framed it. Not just the moment of totality, but the long lead up, the careful unwinding afterward. You remember the way strangers looked upward together, the way silence spread through the crowd, the way the air seemed different, cooler, thinner, filled with anticipation. You remember how, for a few minutes, nothing else mattered. That is what alignment does. It gathers all the scattered pieces of your attention into one still point. It quiets the noise. It reminds you that there are rhythms in the universe far older and steadier than our own fleeting concerns. And then, as quickly as it came, it passes. The earth turns, the moon drifts onward, the sun shines on without pause. Life resumes, but you are changed. Perhaps that is the lasting truth of a solar eclipse. Not the shadow, not the science, but the way it carves a small, eternal shape in your memory. The way it whispers, without words, that the universe is moving, and so are you. And sometimes, your paths align. And when they do, it is worth looking up. The moon drifts onward, leaving the sun to shine freely once more. Above us, light returns to its steady rhythm, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. And yet, you and I know something extraordinary did happen. In the vastness of time, we are fortunate travelers, living in the rare era when the moon and sun appear the same size in our sky, allowing this perfect alignment to unfold. One day, far in the future, no eyes will witness this dance. But tonight, the memory is ours. It is humbling to know that we are part of a universe where shadows have stories, where the turning of worlds creates fleeting wonders. We have followed the moon's shadow together and emerged back into the light. If this quiet voyage through shadow and sunlight has brought you peace, I'd be grateful if you subscribe to The Thoughtful Night, so we can share more journeys like this. And perhaps you might tell me in the comments if you've ever stood in the path of totality. Until next time, may the skies above you always hold a little mystery.